Hi, everybody, and welcome to Doubling Down on Security, a JFrog webinar in conjunction with our amazing friends over here at GitHub. And welcome to JFrog and GitHub delivering unified code and binary advanced security. Um, just to start off, my name is Bill Manning. I am a senior solution architect on the JFrog ML team here at JFrog. I've been with the company for over 8 years. I've done lots of talks, lots of webinars, and other fun things. I am so happy to be joined today by Dave. Dave, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, Dave Burnison, Senior DevOps Advocate with GitHub. I've been at GitHub for over 5 years now, but I've been in this DevOps space for over 15 years. So, really looking forward to talking with you today.
Well, I'm really happy to be talking with you today, too, Dave. I think this is really exciting stuff. So let's just go over a quick agenda so everybody's aware. First thing we're going to go over is, of course, the JFrog and GitHub integration, the best of breed solution from the top two entities around software development in the world, GitHub under source code management, and, of course, JFrog under binary management. We're going to talk about the end-to-end advanced security around code and binaries as part of this. And then, of course, in section 3, we'll talk about the seamless security integration and action. We'll be doing a demonstration of our products. So to kick off, just so to understand, when we talk about best of breed, what that exactly means. So when you look at the software development lifecycle and you talk about things like software supply chain, you understand that you have the phases, right? You curate what you're going to do and the libraries you're going to do to do it. You're going to look at the code that you're going to build to actually build your software, package it up, promote it through its STLC, dev, QA, staging, production, all that good stuff. You're going to distribute the software somewhere, whether it's a web service, maybe to your developers, to your customers, devices, whatever. You're going to deploy that somewhere, and then you're going to have it running somewhere. And when we talk about that, you need to understand that when we talk about the amazing relationship between our two companies, you have, of course, the code side and the binary side, right? The code side, you do what you do as the magic you pull together to create the software you do. And of course, it produces the binary, and you have the binary management. And when you look at what we do, the amazing part behind this is of course, GitHub manages the source code, number one source code repository in the world. Dave, how many members, how many people, how many users now? Is like 115 million, is it? Or something in the
Yeah,
source code space?
150 million
Wow.
uh, users on GitHub. And when I started with GitHub around 5.5 years ago, that number was around 65 million. So we've seen tremendous growth as we've invested more and more in GitHub.
And that's great. And then on the other side, you have us at JFrog, right? We have over 7,000 global corporations, a majority of the Fortune 100 that count on our solution daily. And the thing is that when it comes to it, the main factor that everybody looks for is management and security, whether it's source code management security or binary management and security. And when we break that down and we look at the advanced features that both of our corporations offer, it's really, truly amazing. On the GitHub side, you have the source code and of course code security and secret protection. On the binary side, where we do the really deep level scanning, enhanced software composition analysis, deep level container scanning, secret detection, being able to, one of my favorite features here, CVE prioritization. Let's talk about the noise, right? Misconfigurations that might happen, and all the way down to infrastructure as code. So this allows you to have full range of coverage, the entire life cycle of what you do, right? The SDLC, from code to cloud, developer to device, whatever you say. And in addition to that, we as JFrog bring two other additional components. Everybody talks about shift left, and I always make the joke that we have a product called curation, which is lefter than left. The way to look at it is it's like a firewall for your organization that intercepts the request, and based on policies that you write that go against our database that we have of over millions upon millions of libraries of different types around the world, it allows you to intercept those requests and act as a frontline defense all the way down to runtime, where we can even monitor your Kubernetes runtime and tell you that you might have pods with containers running in them that currently right now have some sort of susceptible nature behind it. And so understanding that by having the choice of the two platforms together, you get solid, reliable code coverage and security coverage from before you start to even after you deploy. And when we look at the integration between our two products, it is a symbiosis between the two. It's a way for organizations to have that streamlined architecture in one reliable platform. GitHub and their source code management. Of course, Copilot as a way to enable developers to interact and with their code and ask questions and get back responses and ask for information. And then they tie that into things like our curation and our catalog product. So just so you're aware, JFrog is a CNA. We are a CVE numbering authority. So we're not just a security product provider, we're also a security authority. And all that information we've accumulated gets fed back with those rules and policies you define to Copilot so that developers can understand what they can use and what they can't use. On top of that, with Actions, the most amazing CI tool. I love Actions. I've loved it for forever. I think it's a fantastic tool. We'll show as part of our demonstration today how the two work together. How when you produce something, it pulls all the libraries out of JFrog into Actions, creates the software, publishes it back, and we have bidirectional linking between the two, and we have this enhanced software coverage of both security of the binary side and of the source code. And at the end, being able to pull all this and shove it into some sort of runtime or a device or whatever really allows corporations to have a fully end-to-end solution. Dave, was there anything you'd like to add as part of this too?
And one of the things I like to talk about when we talk about the integrations with GitHub, making GitHub the backbone of your DevOps platform, and then leveraging these integrations like JFrog. And JFrog has done a fantastic job of integrating things, as we'll see in a little bit. But I like to say it makes the whole greater than the sum of the parts. You get so much more value by using these amazing tools together.
Couldn't agree more. So when we talk about that, let's just talk about the JFrog platform first, and then we'll talk about how the two work together. So when I talk about the JFrog platform, I need you to understand that there's really some essential bits behind it. The number one key benefit behind everything is, of course, your database of DevOps, right? The single source of truth for every piece of software that you build, how it was built, what was used to build it, all the information behind that. A way to manage that software through its SDLC. When you promote an object, a build from, say, dev to QA to staging and production, you get the full level of accountability behind it. What was used, once again, how it was built. On top of that, if you have QA, any QA actions or any QA information they might want to put in. So we have that system of record, all the way down to being able to distribute this and also use this platform multi-site, multi-cloud, hybrid, you name it. We fit into your architecture to work within your means. The other part of this too is that with our main source of truth is that we have that end-to-end software supply chain. Being able to curate the packages from the open source world that make up 85 to 90% of your code is people you don't know, right? The other part of it is too being able to detect those malicious packages, those ability to do deep level binary scanning on the things that you use in addition to your source code to make up that software, being able to detect if you have misconfigurations or secrets, and even being able to protect it in a runtime and level environment, tracing it back to its inception. I always make the joke that when I think about our platform in conjunction with GitHub, I think of us as like a conveyor belt with a bunch of spot checks along the way that provide a level of security. And what we have is we have the open source packages, and then we have the source code, which is like the raw materials. And at the end of the conveyor belt is some sort of software you deliver. Then, of course, now my team and the newest things that we're doing now is, of course, ML development. We've taken all the amazing security, all the amazing accountability, all the amazing things that we've done with software development, and we're now applying that to AI and ML ops. Being able to do experiment tracking, have a build system and deployment system, be able to do model monitoring, distributing, and have a great registry as part of this. And lastly, we also have an Edge IoT management platform. So you can actually go ahead and either publish something to the edge, like say you have a web service, you could package up the Helm charts, the Docker images, the Terraform you might have, distribute them out to our Edge nodes where you can have multi-region, multi-cloud, or even have so your customers can download, or with IoT, be able to do active updates of devices no matter where they are. And this allows you to have that end-to-end solution from the data sources, third-party sources, non-dependent on tools that you use, all the way down to the software you produce. One of the key benefits of using JFrog for security is the ideas of being able to have control, right? Visibility of what you're using, controlling of what's inside your system, being able to go ahead and look at all the things that you're utilizing. And if you do find something nefarious, let's go back to Log4j, being able to find out the blast radius of how much it's affected over time. Also, making it seamless, making it easy for you to implement. In most cases, because our security solution behind the scenes is continuous, means that it's always evaluating, it's always working. And being able to put those rules and conditions in and the actions you take on when something is nefarious or malicious is very easy to do. Also, with our advanced security, we have this idea of contextual analysis. Is the CVE's condition being met? If it's not, do you really need to think about that CVE? So it allows developers, it allows organizations to focus on the CVEs that are actually directly affecting them, as opposed to chasing down something that may not even have happened or may not be an issue. And at the end, making it all completely customizable so that you have that end-to-end ability, you have that accountability. Security teams can focus on what they need to focus on while the platform behind the scenes takes over everything else. And when we talk about advanced security, it's full end-to-end protection at your developer level. Like as part of the demonstration, I'll show the integrations we have into like VS Code and Copilot and how you can utilize that for things like looking at the developer level. Are the libraries I'm using potentially gonna hurt my organization when I'm doing it? And remember, when I say hurt, I don't mean financially. Financially is the thing. Reputation's worse, right? Being able to see if my configurations are correct. Do I have any secrets and things like that? Being able to actually focus once again on the things that are actually affecting me and not the things that I'm not. Removing all those false positives. On top of that, I can do it in the IDE. I can do it in the CLI. And then on top of that, everything is customizable. Everything works in the confines of your organization. And when you understand how binaries are and what Artifactory it does, in terms of the third party, the binaries that are produced, all those things, it allows you to have full security coverage so things don't get accidentally introduced when you are using maybe even some of these new vibe coding tools and looking at that, or looking at the way, security something might be introduced as part of the CI process. Being able to cover all the dependencies, whether it's third party dependencies you might get, paid, all the way down to FOSS, right? The free and open source software, like I said, that 85 to 90% of your software depends on. I love the adage that people say is like the equivalent of finding a thumb drive in the gutter, picking it up, bringing it home to your server, plugging it in, downloading all the stuff off there. It's kind of the equivalent of just pulling libraries out of the cloud, right? On top of that, making sure that all the surface level attacks that could happen at the binary level are covered. So this way, when you deploy that you have the fullest coverage possible in everything that you produced, used, or have out there. So part of the binary critical scanning is to give you an idea. We had this example that happened, and by the way, we'll provide you with the link, or you can go look it up. So Python, or PyPy, the organization, had a maintainer, and this maintainer was going out and building some amazing code, right? And it doesn't matter what it is, but he was building a nice piece of software, and as part of that software, he actually went ahead and had a key that was part of this, right? Had it in part of the source code, did his testing because he wanted to test it on the back end and see what happens. Well, you should remove those kind of things. We all know that. Well, in his case, unfortunately, that key also transferred over into the binary file. And they accidentally went ahead and checked in this new library into the public forum, and it was out there. Now, the thing is that we, as a CNA, as I mentioned before, we do scanning as a way for us to get back to the community, whether it's Hugging Face models, Python packages, npm. We have millions of these actual libraries there. And the thing is that we recognize this. We reached out to the organization because this key, actually, by the way, just so you know, was a key to the kingdom, a key to python.org, PyPy, all those. This could have been very detrimental. So, as soon as he recognized it, we actually went ahead and let them know. We sent it back, and within 17 minutes, the issue was addressed. Because like I said, we're good little net citizens. We like to do our thing and make sure that we make the world a safer place, right? I mean, that's the way it sounds. I want to make the world a safer place. Yeah, we try to do all that, right, as a real org. And the thing is that this is one example. So if you go ahead and just look at, we actually have the link right here, but you can go ahead and look online. Fascinating read. Pretty awesome stuff, actually. Now the thing is that the scarier part is back in 2024, we actually ran a quick scan and we found out 56, there's actually, this is a Gartner thing, I believe, said that 56% of the companies are scanning source and binaries. Think about that. Only 56%. That, in my opinion, makes me a little nervous, right? I mean, I work with customers on my end when sometimes I hear what they're doing in terms of security. I'm like, hey, I'm not trying to really sell you, but I am because I'm one of your customers, and what you're telling me right now makes me slightly uncomfortable. So, the thing is having full end-to-end coverage before and after is one of the killer features, and being able to have all that level of accountability, for security organizations. So, saying that, I believe that I'm going to hand this off over to Dave. Dave, I am looking
All
forward to the
right.
magic you bring.
There we go. Make sure. There we go. Came right up. Awesome. So
Oh, look at
yes,
that.
let's talk about the GitHub platform, and then we'll get into the integrations and such. So when we look at the GitHub platform, of course, it started out with source control management. Many would say that GitHub more or less invented the pull request and everything. So we've been the home of open source for years. But now we're also the home for many enterprises. We mentioned earlier 150 million developers. We're in like 90% of the Fortune 100 companies in America and everything. So when we talk about the scale of GitHub Enterprise Cloud and everything, but now we're also talking about things like productivity with GitHub Copilot and continuous integration and continuous deployment with GitHub Actions. GitHub Copilot leveraging AI to help you write code, help you understand existing legacy code, taking away that toil of writing tests and writing that boilerplate code and that, so that you can actually spend your time focusing on the big meaty portions of your application. Now, of course, today we're here to talk about security, and we'll talk about things like code scanning and secret scanning. And here we're talking about secret scanning within the source code that you're managing within GitHub, and the security overview, providing a nice way to see all of the vulnerabilities that have been out there. How long have they been out there? Are we getting them fixed? Are we burning down that security debt? But then also talking about security campaigns where this is where the security teams and the developers come together. GitHub will have all of these alerts. We even provide a single pane of glass so you can see alerts from things like JFrog binary scanner as well. And then the security team can create that security campaign that says, okay, here's this long list of alerts, but for the next 30 days, we're going to focus on this subset. Maybe it's a particular CVE like SQL injection or cross-site scripting, or maybe there's a particular set of repositories you want to focus on. But you can manage that through security campaigns. And then, of course, we talk about GitHub being this large DevOps ecosystem. I said earlier, the way we look at things today is make GitHub the backbone of your overall DevOps stack, but leverage the integrations and APIs that we have to integrate with other industry leading solutions like JFrog Artifactory, like Jira, like Azure Boards, and things like that. But the GitHub is the center of it because we know that's where developers love to be. And when we talk specifically about GitHub Copilot, this has really taken off. Since its public launch in 2022, we now have over 15 million users using GitHub Copilot. And that can be used in your IDE of choice, whether it's Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio, the JetBrains family of IDEs, Eclipse, and Xcode. We've really been putting more and more functionality into those IDE integrations. But it's also becoming ubiquitous throughout the GitHub platform itself. You can have that chat right on github.com. Even before you open up the code in one of those IDEs, you can say, hey, I'm new to this project. Copilot, can you explain to me what's the tech stack? What is this application actually doing, and things like that. So yeah, we're making it ubiquitous throughout the GitHub platform, and I'll talk about what that means for security in just a little bit. But a key thing to talk about here today is GitHub Actions. Uh, GitHub Actions, for all that source code that's out there in GitHub, and there's many other CI/CD tools and everything. GitHub Actions has become the number one CI/CD tool for code that lives in GitHub, and so you can do your builds, run your unit tests, bring in other tools to do linting and quality checks and things. You can store your binaries in JFrog through the JFrog integration. And if I go to our marketplace, we can see exactly the offerings that are there directly from JFrog to integrate with GitHub Actions. And in fact, you can even use Copilot to help you set it up. You can go to Copilot chat and say, hey, would you help me integrate JFrog Artifactory with my source code so that I can build my binaries and store and manage them out there in JFrog. Now let's talk about GitHub Advanced Security, since that's the focus of our session here today. And with GitHub, we know there's many tools out there that can alert you to many different, whether it's code security issues or secrets stored in code or whatnot. But we really want to help developers fix those issues as well, not just find them, because developers are not inherently security experts, so they need the information and the tooling to help them fix them. So nowadays we talk about GitHub Advanced Security, we say found means fixed with Copilot Autofix, because we're Copilot is helping you to identify the exact fix that you need to make to address the vulnerabilities as they are found. And Bill mentioned earlier about shifting left. I love the what you said about curation, even more than shifting left kind of a thing. But let's take a look at this diagram. This is the typical developer workflow. Let's say Bill and I are working together on a new solution. We're going to add a new feature. So I create a new branch, commit some changes, run some tests. Maybe, okay, I need to refactor this a little bit for maintainability. I make some changes. Then I submit that pull request. And that's where automation kicks in. We've got builds and unit tests and maybe some system tests with things like Playwright or Selenium or Cucumber or other tools like that. And then Bill goes and reviews my code, and he looks at that code and he says, hey, that's a great start, Dave, but if we need this system to scale to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of users at once, so maybe we need to refactor some of those algorithms to handle that load and everything. Then we make those changes, merge that branch into main. This is that developer workflow that developers go through day after day when they're using Git as their source control system. And we're bringing the security tools right into this developer workflow. What we're going to focus on today are things like secret protection, making sure that your source code does not contain API tokens if you're integrating with Stripe for credit card processing, or maybe you're deploying to AWS or Azure. Where are you storing those tokens that you need for those deployments? Even generic passwords these days. We leverage AI to help us find those generic passwords and things. Also, code security. We run a tool called CodeQL that queries the code for patterns that could lead to SQL injection or cross-site scripting, or things from the OWASP top 10 of security vulnerabilities. Making sure that your code does not contain those vulnerabilities. And the idea here is that we want to detect and remediate vulnerabilities before new code is introduced into the main branch for the first time. And now this is where we start talking about JFrog as well, because JFrog has complementary tools for finding those CVEs embedded in the packages that you're relying on. We talk about JFrog secret protection as well. But one area where we really see, great integration and complementing features is within the JFrog binary scanner. Because GitHub's all about the source code. Yes, you can build containers and manage containers with GitHub Actions, but GitHub is not looking at those base images that you're pulling into those containers and you're building upon. But JFrog is. And that's where, when we combine these tools together, we can have a single pane of glass to see all of these security results in one place. All right, so let me dive into a little more detail here. GitHub secret scanning. And one of the things here, yeah, we've got numerous links in here, so you'll be able to download or get a hold of a PDF of this presentation afterwards, so that you have access to all these links. Consider this your resource book for the things that you need to work with JFrog and GitHub together. Now, if I kind of zoom in on this screenshot here, here's the scenario. I'm a developer. I have this Microsoft background. I'm using Azure boards for planning and tracking and managing my bugs and everything. And we're doing these automated tests. So I'm in the configuration file for my tests. And the idea is, if one of my tests fails, I want to reach back out to Azure boards and automatically create a bug there. And I've got to get this started. I'm just going to use a personal access token here to do that. Now, I know I shouldn't be storing this in code. My plan is to move that over to Azure Key Vault or HashiCorp Vault or something like that. But I just need to get this process working right now. So get this put in place. I get everything working. It's working the way I want. I'm ready to check in that code, ready to push that code up to GitHub. Well, when I do that actual git push, GitHub is going to mark this as failed. And it's going to say that, hey, we detected a secret in your push. I have to zoom back out and zoom in again on the lower portion here to highlight even more. So this is where GitHub push protection kicks in. And this is an old screenshot. It's actually generally available now. But you'll notice it doesn't just say any old secret. It is specific. It says you've got an Azure DevOps personal access token in here. There's over 200 types of secrets that we can detect from over 100 different partners. I mentioned Stripe, I mentioned Azure, AWS, GCP, HashiCorp if you're using Terraform, other tools like Datadog, and that if that's where you're writing your all your logging and everything. That's secret scanning push protection in a nutshell. We also, for code that's already in GitHub, we also do secret scanning. So, our alerts page may show a list of secrets that already have been found. Now, we're also now leveraging AI to go beyond kind of those known patterns of secrets to the more generic patterns. So we're leveraging AI so that we can identify things like more generic passwords. Because if we see a string of random characters, you can't just assume that it's a password. But now, with bringing AI into the game, we can say, okay, wait a minute, we see this variable here. How's it being used? Let's track through the code and see, oh, wait, this is being used in a login process. So that must be a password. Because one of the things with the GitHub security tools, we really want to make sure that we're minimizing the noise. We want to minimize the number of false positives. But now that we've brought AI to the game, we can be more confident about when we're detecting actual passwords. Now, the next thing to talk about is GitHub code security. And this is where code QL kicks in. That QL stands for query language. What we do is we run a process on the code that turns the code into data that we can then query for bad patterns of code. code patterns that might lead to, and then like I mentioned before, SQL injection, cross-site scripting, a whole host of things. But we also allow third-party tools to plug into this as well. And that's where we can see the inclusion of things like JFrog's binary scanning tools being plugged right in here. And now the way we brought AI to the game for code scanning is with what we call Copilot Autofix. In the past, yes, we'd give you lots of information about this CVE. We'd say, in this case, we've got this missing cross-site request forgery token validation issue. Now, a lot of developers are not going to even know what that means, but you could dive in there where it says show more details. We would explain it to you. We'd give you just some generic examples what bad code might look like and a generic example of what good code might look like to give you guidance to be able to fix those things. But now with Copilot Autofix, we'll actually, rather than just giving you a generic example, like in this case, it says here at line 188, you can add this additional attribute to fix that. And Copilot Autofix says, I have this right here. Do you want to just go ahead and accept this change? So now I could commit that suggestion directly to this branch that I'm working on. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but this is showing up inside of a pull request. So by the time Bill goes to review my code, this is already going to be appearing in that whole pull request conversation and everything. So again, talking about shifting left, fixing these issues before codes merge to the main branch for the first time. Now we also have what we call security campaigns. With security campaigns, your security team can go into this development tool where all the code lives and where we're integrating with the third-party tools and look at all of the alerts that are out there and say, you know what, we've got a mountain of security alerts to address. And that's typically what happens when you turn all these tools on for the first time. But the security team's going to say, we want to focus on this subset of issues. And this is Copilot also plugs in here. In this case, we can see where this security campaign has been created to focus on cross-site scripting. All 15 of these issues can be addressed by Copilot Autofix. So you can much more quickly work through and confidently address these security issues and know that you're working on the right set because the security team has worked with you to help prioritize what to fix. All right. Demo time. You ready, Bill?
I am ready as ever.
All right. Why don't
So
you take over the screen again and
let's
start
do
off?
that. Let me go in. Let's pretend I'm a developer doing my thing, right? And we talked about all the various aspects of the both platforms and how they go. But let's start off with a simple example. So I talked about lefter than left. I talked about curation and those ideas. So let's go in and take a look. So one of the things that we have here is, of course, our thing called catalog. Now, catalog is a way for me as a developer to go in and search for any sort of package that might be out there. If you look here, I've got some npm packages. I even have things like Hugging Face where I've got a model. But what this allows me to do is to look for specific packages based on specific package types. Like if I have an example here, it says Webpack. If I go into Webpack for, say, Python, everything is A-OK. It's been approved by my company and everything is really good to go. But say I do a search for Webpack and it's for npm. Now that's a whole different story. And if you look here, you can see that this version of Webpack is partially being blocked because with curation, what we have is policies that you can define. And like as I said before, we've cataloged millions upon millions of actual libraries that are in the world of various types. And then these policies, this allows me to go in and actually see what's been pulled in, what's been approved, what's been dry run. I can have a malicious package, but I can get it approved by my team. Now, as a developer, this is a great place to be, right? It allows me to go ahead and do searches and do things more expeditiously and find out before I even use it whether or not something is actually available to my org. Well, but I can also do the same thing at the actual developer level. So let's go ahead and switch over to my IDE. Now, my IDE in this case happens to be, of course, Visual Studio Code. I'm using npm as my build in this case. And if I go in here, one of the first things I could do is, as an organization, I can say, okay, well, I've got a conversation here. And with this conversation that I have, I can say, I want to go use Copilot to query Artifactory and says, hey, can I use Webpack from npm with my project? Let's go take a look. And what this is going to do is actually this is going to go query, go ahead and query, Artifactory and the JFrog platform. Go to curation, and it says yes, you can use Webpack, but it only says I can use a very specific version that's approved. It's filtered out the other ones. On top, so this gives me a way to interact, but I can also ask other questions that I might have asked over time too. If I want an explanation about a CVE, this allows that I might have found and say, so the code I'm doing. This allows me to go ahead, query, get all the information, and find out all the information about it. Or, as Dave said before, how do I use GitHub, GitHub Actions with Artifactory, right? Here you go. And if I do this, this is going to go ahead, grab the information, and probably link directly to the documentation. And then, of course, here's all the information on the one that you're using and how you can actually go ahead and use GitHub Actions with this. Now, in
I think
addition, if you
a
take a look,
great thing about that, Bill, let me just interject
oh,
real
sure.
quickly there. Scroll down there a little bit. You'll see it's showing you exactly which actions to plug in and use rather than just saying, hey, I'm going to go out to the GitHub Actions Marketplace. There's 20,000 actions out
Yep.
there. I know only a few from JFrog, but am I going to find the right actions to use? By allowing Copilot to help you, it gives you pinpoint directions on how to plug Artifactory and the related tools right into your actions workflow.
Absolutely. Now, the other side of this too is that if I'm in this IDE as a developer, where our code security comes in at the developer level outside before I even check in my code, is that we actually have plugins for the IDEs. And if you look here, you can see I have a whole bunch of dependencies that I have for my project. And in here, I can go select any of these dependencies, and I can let you know that, hey, you know what? These actual libraries have violations. And in this case, I found one that says, yeah, you know what? This is applicable. This is happening to you. This is actually letting me know that I'm actually utilizing it. Another thing too is I can look at other CVEs such as this one, where it's letting me know that the CVE is applicable in my app.js file. And it actually goes right to the actual issue itself. I can look at actually contextually what's happening, and then we say, okay, what can I do to fix it? And here it is right here, right? The recommendation is actually to follow Express and actually go ahead and utilize it. But once I've actually done this, now I want to go take this and go check it in. So I would do all my normal check-in functions that I would have. But this is, like I said, a way for you to delineate through the issues that you need to focus on. Now, the next part of this is the fact that I'm going to go show you a GitHub action. And I go in to utilize the GitHub action. Let's go take a look. Here it is right here. This is a simple Python project that I have. Here's the action code itself. I can go in and show you, here's my sample build. Now, by the way, as stated, you can go ahead and use Copilot or just go, type in, GitHub Actions, just type in that in JFrog. And of course, you go right to the marketplace and it's right here, right? All the information to show you what I'm going to show you, which is when I do this, one of the things that you should know is that we're using our JFrog CLI behind the scenes. And it's very simple to implement. This little piece of code here is fantastic. All you're doing is setting up the JFrog CLI, pointing it to your instance. And the best part is if you're an enterprise or a managed user instance or an EMU instance, and you have OIDC, is that we've now enabled it so you can use OIDC from GitHub as your source to actually log in and perform the actions through the JFrog platform, increasing security, right? So you're not using tokens or things like that. It's more of a dynamic a dynamic control. So it makes it easier. And if you look here, here's all those things I just showed you as part of Copilot, right? All the same level of commands. And when I run this project, what's fantastic is that whenever I run a build, GitHub was absolutely fantastic in allowing us to take our results and make it really work for the companies, right? So if you look here, now the job summary for every actions job that you produce actually links back to JFrog. If I click on here directly from the actual link, it will bring me to my JFrog instance where I can go ahead and see everything that was produced, how it was produced, my X-ray scan results. And the other best part is it's bi-directional. So from inside of here, I can also click and go back to the actual build I was just showing you. So we have the bi-directional nature. We even show you what was produced. So if I want to download the TarGZ, I can simply go ahead. This will go ahead and bring me directly to the location inside of Artifactory where I can bring it down and I can go ahead and download it directly, which is great. And we also provide all the scan results, all the information on security. So if I went into here and I took a look at any of the X-ray scans that I have here, just to kind of show you what that means, is I can go in here, look at any of these build results that I might have around this. Here's an example of an npm Docker image and the information that we provide at the finished level. And then, Dave will go in and show you the GitHub side is that when you produce anything, I can show you here that number one, this actual container has 511 vulnerabilities. Now, as an organization, I would be terrified by this number because it will take me a year and a day. And even if I get to it, all to even research, am I being affected? With the JFrog Advanced Security product, you can see that out of those 511, only about 21-ish or 20-ish of those actually need to be addressed because the condition that causes the malicious package to be what it is isn't being addressed. And if I take a look here, this is letting me know, here's all the details on why, what it is, and also to where it's located so I can get directly to it. We're also doing secret detection. So we have secret detection to see if anything is actually been baked into it. We also have malicious packages. I'll let you know if there's any malicious packages in the things that you're utilizing. Also, too, application and service level exposures, which is actually a really good thing, too. So even things like, am I enforcing TLS or not? And on top of that, everything has accountability behind it. So if I go back in here, I can actually trace everything back to from there to the build that produced it. I could take a look at any of the things that were produced and the dependencies behind it. And this is my favorite feature, Dave. I didn't get a chance to show this one other time, which say you find a library is the worst thing known to man. I could take this library, click on it, trace it back, and within seconds, I can tell you that it was in 547 builds that I produced over time. So if I needed blast radius or remediation purposes, I could pinpoint exactly where, how, and when it's been used over time. So the
That's fantastic.
integration between our two platforms is phenomenal. Now, that's my portion. Now I'm going to hand it over to Dave, and Dave is going to show you all the amazing bits that they also do on their side.
One thing I will say, kind of scroll through that integration or the summary there, Bill, of
Yeah.
the different tools that I've seen that integrate with GitHub Actions. A lot of them just kind of have a text dump of results and things, but JFrog has done a really nice job of with the emojis and the tree there for the packages and everything, making it really visually easy to focus in on what you need to look at, provide you the links that you need to get to the right details and everything else. Visually, one of the best integrations that I have seen personally myself.
And actually, one of the ones I don't have here is if you're using our runtime, by the way, Dave, and you're deploying, say, a container, one of the things that we have is that you can actually tie it into here. And if you're looking at a build and it's a container build and you're using runtime, we could tell you that the container is currently running in runtime
Well,
from your
nice.
GitHub Actions page.
So that's taking things even much farther than what we have as far as default visibility in the actions results. So what I'm looking at here is my DevRel Labs, that's Developer Relations Labs organization, and you'll have an organization for a collection of product repositories. If you're a big enterprise, I came from Microsoft, so I'll often use Microsoft as an example. maybe the office team has a organization, you've got repos in there for Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. There'd be another organization perhaps for Azure. So, with repos for Azure Kubernetes service and Azure functions and all the different, Azure things that are out there. So here's where you would dive in for your specific repositories. Now I'm going to start out going into this Parts Unlimited GH repository because we've got a pull request here where we've been working on some changes where we're updating the branding because we're Contoso and we purchased Parts Unlimited from Fabricam. So we're going through and doing all this rebranding work and everything. And there's a couple of ways Copilot pops in here. So as a developer, I didn't write a very good description. Well, if I'd have taken my time while I was initially creating the pull request, I could have said, hey, Copilot, can you write a summary for me? And Copilot's going to summarize all of the changes here. And so now we see Copilot gives us this nice, comprehensive description, even mentioning the different files that we've changed and everything. So this gives somebody like my coworker Bill a lot of great context when he comes in here to review the pull request. And in this case, we can even assign a pull request to Copilot for review now. So we can see the results of Copilot's review right here. Now, in this case, Copilot didn't find anything that we needed to change or anything, but it did, also give its kind of perspective and view on the code changes and things. So now Bill comes in and he's getting ready to review the code. He's scrolling down to see what's been happening so far. And he comes across this. Here's CodeQL saying we found a security issue in this new code that Dave wrote. Missing cross-site request forgery token validation. Now, just earlier this week, I had a session where I was sharing this with developers, and I said, okay, developers, raise your hand if you know what that means. And there was kind of one person that kind of said, well, I think I know what that means. But and that's kind of the point here, right? Developers are not security experts, but we want to help you fix and address these things as easily as possible. So in the past, you'd go in to show more details. We'd probably give you a generic way to fix this. But now with Copilot Autofix kicks in and it says, okay, if we just inject this validate anti-forgery token attribute at line 188 in that file, that will fix the issue. Do you want to edit this and maybe do some more analysis and debugging, or are you confident enough in that change you can say just commit that suggestion right to this branch? So this is why we say found means fixed. But we can also pull in other security tools as well. So let me go back here, and I have another repository that actually has JFrog security tools and JFrog binary scanning integrated right in here. If I go into those code scanning alerts, I can see different languages. I've got one here in Python that's that was in the other repo, so we'll not worry about that one right now. But I can go in here and look at all the different tools, right? So in this case, JFrog X-ray scanner found 527. But like Bill said, they can also do that context analysis so it knows, hey, that vulnerability is in there, but the likelihood of it actually being exploited is really low because of that contextual analysis and stuff. But here's where JFrog binary secret scanner comes in. We don't scan binaries. So this is looking like at the base of images of those containers that are being brought in. And here's where those secrets are being found. So we provide that single pane of glass so that even if you're using multiple tools, you can see all of these in one place. And another really powerful place where this comes into play now is if I go to the security tab at the organization level, I can see across all of my repos all the different alerts that are out there. And I can see what's the trend over time. Now, this is a demo environment, so things actually stay kind of static in my demo environment here. So you can see that's kind of flat. But you would hope that, yeah, the average number of days that alerts out there is, is pretty low and things like that. But one of the things I can talk about here is how you can filter down and say, okay, I want to focus in on just the stuff that JFrog binary scanner is finding. So again, single pane of glass. Here I am in GitHub, but I can focus in on, okay, I've got a couple of different repositories that have those binary secret alerts in there. Or I can leverage what we call security campaigns. I can go into security campaigns, and this is where I would create a campaign, and I could create it from a template, so I could focus in on the MITRE top 10 or cross-site scripting. There's templates out there for that. Or I can create one from scratch and build out my own filters and things. And if we go in, first I'm going to go into the one for Parts Unlimited, and we can see this is where we showed this in that slide, right? We've got 31 items out here. 29 of these items can be addressed by Copilot. So Copilot can help us fix these alerts so much faster. But now if I go back and go into this security campaign that we can create it on this demo JFrog integration environment, we can see I've got this filtered down so that when we look at what tools, try that again. That didn't want to scroll. Well, come on. There we go. I want to get to tool. There we go, tool. I can see JFrog binary scanner and CodeQL are the tools that I'm focused in on for this particular security campaign. So now rather than seeing those hundreds of alerts, we see 6, right? We've got 3 in the code, and Copilot can help. Copilot AutoFix can help us fix those. And we've got 3 coming from JFrog binary scanner. So the security team, by helping us prioritize these things, gives the developers a very small set of things that they need to go and address. All right. One other thing I want to talk about real quick is security scanning. In this particular case, I don't have any security scanning results showing up here, but GitHub now gives you the ability to do a free secret risk assessment, and we include information about this in the deck that we have. So, Bill, you want to take over and kind of wrap us up here?
Boom. Go. So at the end of the day, know that JFrog and GitHub are the best of breed integration. I've been so happy since moment one that we started to go down this journey together. GitHub managing all your and securing all your code security, Copilot, code. I mean, God, amazing amount of stuff that you guys offer. Really excited. So many cool things. Then of course us, as JFrog, managing and securing all your binaries with all of our various security products that we have here. So very efficient, very effective, first-class integration, unified software delivery, and consumption, everything you need for a software supply chain platform to be, and your SDLC, bi-directional linking between the two very seamlessly. I mean, come on, you can't get better than that. I mean, it's pretty awesome, and we're very excited about it. Of course, Dave, the big thing.
Yes, GitHub Universe. That's our annual conference for developers. I heard somebody refer to this as the Super Bowl for nerds. It's going to be in San Francisco, October 28th and on 29th, but most all of the sessions will also be streamed live virtually and available as recordings soon after. So no matter what part of the globe you're in, you can still attend GitHub Universe.
It's awesome. I've gone so many years in a row, talked many times. Fantastic event. And on top of that, I believe I clicked on the link by accident here.
Actually,
Okay.
another thing about that, JFrog was there as one of our partners last year. JFrog had a big presence at GitHub Universe.
It was
Yes.
awesome. We had a little mini golf, so I don't know. We'll see if we can
Yeah.
top it this year. It was pretty rad. Not gonna lie. Loved doing it. And also, I did 2 sessions, and it was such a good time. So, for more resources, and we'll provide this as part of the PDF as a download for the service. But you have basically everything from the essential guide for managing from debt, which comes from you guys, which is the
Yep, a white
amazing.
paper that we put out just in the last couple of months. So, see how to use all of the GitHub security tools and how to set those up and configure them and get the most out of them for your organization.
Awesome. You can also get this free runtime assessment, right? This is
Yep.
a risk assessment, which is fantastic. It'll be part of this too. And of
One thing
course,
I'll one
oh,
thing I'll point out real quick there, we we had found when we launched this, we had found 39 million secrets in code that was stored on GitHub. So yes, that is a
amazing.
very rampant problem that we want to try to help you fix.
Yeah, we found the same thing when we started scanning like millions upon millions of Docker images and all, it was unbelievable what we found. On top of that, so remember, leaping forward together, GitHub and JFrog, unified, everything's there, everything you need. Just go to jfrog.com/jfrog dash and dash GitHub, and there's tons of information there. Want to thank you guys. Look at our research page. Go look at the latest previews on GitHub. This will all be available. We got tons of information for you. And all I want to say is at the end of this is thank you. Dave, thank you. Pleasure as always working with you. Pleasure always. The two of our companies get to work together. I'm Bill Manning and Dave. Thank you
Yep,
so much. Be safe, be
pleasure.
wonderful, be well everywhere. Dave, take us out.
Absolutely. Again, now that we have these integrations in place, the whole is really greater than the sum of their parts. And take this information and go forth and do great things. Bill, it has been a pleasure. Look forward to working with you again soon.
Absolutely, Dave. Cheers, everyone. Bye.